Hi everybody and welcome to our training Living with ADHD. My name is Annie Clements. I'm the founder and chief exec of Autism and ADHD and My ND Place. This training is specifically geared towards adults, but if you are listening on behalf of your child or a partner, you will gain a huge amount of information from it that will be equally useful for you. So let's get started. So ADHD is a neurobiological disorder. That means that it is part of who we are. It's in our brain. We can't switch it on and switch it off and turn into someone who's neurotypical when we choose to do that. It's something that we refer to as being part of our identity. Now, I have ADHD myself. I wasn't diagnosed until I was an adult. It's intrinsically part of who I am. I can't separate bits of me out. So I will do all of the normal human stuff, if you like, but I will always be doing that through an ADHD filter. And I think that's quite important to remember, especially when we're talking about behavior and thought process and what have you. Yep, we still do all the normal stuff and emotional highs and lows, but we're doing it through an ADHD filter. And it's really important to remember that. So it didn't just arrive on the planet at this particular time, but it was first identified as a term right at the beginning of the 1900s, with the first children being identified sort of in those first 10 years. But it was always seen, and still is up to a point, as a massive deficit. And these children were morally deficit, which is just an appalling term. Hopefully we don't call children morally deficit anymore, but people with ADHD still get a bit of, a lot of stigma and unexplained things around who we are, and it's always seen as a bad behavior thing or something that we're doing wrong, and it's by a huge amount of people across society, and an excuse for bad parenting. And of course that isn't what's going on any level whatsoever. Obviously lack of information, poor management within homes and schools can make ADHD more challenging and more difficult, but it's not what caused the ADHD in the first place. So ADHD and autism sit on the same two strands of DNA, so there is some crossovers here, but it is also very unique in its own right, and very much, I feel, the poor relation within the system. I've been doing this type of work for a long time, over 30 years, and I can count on my fingers how many times I've been asked for a discrete ADHD training. So I tend to mix them up a bit, because actually it's important. If not, we'd never get the information about ADHD out into the arena. So just bear that in mind as we go through. There is some crossovers here. Okay. So there's three types of ADHD for those of you that are not aware of that. There's what we call inattentive ADHD, which tends to show itself up quite a bit in the female part of the population, although there obviously is a crossover there. I'm sure if you read the slide, you'll recognize things that maybe apply to yourself or people that you care for, or care about, I should say. And I certainly can equate to that, those things on there, especially the difficult with organisation and losing things. I've got much better at knowing how to manage that, and we're going to talk about those management strategies as we go forward. And I love the bit about does not appear to listen. We're trying very hard to listen, I have to say, but it's how people communicate with us. And we do find it hard to listen if we're made to sit still. That's another agenda. But if we find it much easier to engage and listen, even if we haven't got the hyperactivity side of ADHD, if someone's telling us, will you just sit still? No, my body's not letting me sit still. We really don't have on purpose. And you'll see that I've got a swingy chair. It helps usually moving my hands and my fingers around quite a bit, and definitely my feet. And I find it very difficult to sit still. And certainly as a when I was going out in the evening and going to pubs and what have you, when we had those antiquated things called beer mats, I would sit and shred them, and I'd have this little pile of cardboard that sat in the middle of the table. Back then, everyone just thought I was a bit odd, but I now know it was helping me stay in the room, and because I was doing something with my hands. Right, so these things are our body's way of trying to manage the situation rather than us doing it on purpose. We've then got hyperactive ADHD, which I definitely have got alongside mine, and I think it's how people perceive this, that we're out of control, that we need to learn how to sit still. Can we just explain this a little bit further? So it's our body that's moving. We're not most of the times in control of that. In fact, if someone makes me sit still, I'm then spending all my energy on sitting still. I'm not listening to you. I'm not able to concentrate. My mind will just be going, sit still, sit still, sit still. So it's pointless. We've got to find ways to create this movement for this particular group of society to enable us to function. And when you do that for us, we can be pretty amazing about what it is that we can do. So don't try and stop us. Work with it, and we have to learn how to work with it as well. And of course, the third version of that is the two of these things joined together, which is me. I've got both. Some people have got one or the other. And it's about understanding who we are. Like I said, this isn't a label. It's not a bad thing. It's part of who we are. And the more we understand that, the better. Okay, but if we turn that all around, all those things into the amazing things that it gives us, we're then in a very different world. And this is the bit that's been missed for years about the skills that we actually bring to the table. Everything has been focused on the so-called problems and deficits and challenges, instead of looking at what ADHD actually gives us. So we're very calm under pressure, and we love chaos and tight deadlines and all those things that we get criticized for. We can be very creative. We're definitely non-linear thinkers. So great problem solvers, as it says further down the line. We can look at a situation and come up with a solution that nobody else in the room would have thought about. And not just one solution, very often, quite a lot of solutions. And we certainly work with adults who are employed because of the solve, because they bring something different to the table. And again, it's about realizing what these things are as skills, not seeing them as deficits. We notice are things that other people miss. And those of us that have got more of that hyper, we've got a very adventurous spirit. We want to be out there doing stuff. We're very innovative. We're not great at just, we need a level of repetitiveness to enable us to manage some things, but we also need that kick, that adrenaline push in some cases to enable us to move forward. Those with hyperactivity got very high energy levels. Our systems are working like little hamsters on a wheel. Our brains are in the same space, but that enables us to get lots of things done when we can bring the focus in at the same time. And when we're passionate about something, we can be really, really hyper focused. So if we're able to move forward in our pathway and find a job that we love, that we're passionate about, then we can hyper focus there and actually achieve incredible things. We are rapid in decision making as well, and coming up with solutions. We've got excellent debating skills, mostly because we don't stop talking. But we're actually very good communicators if we're given the right platform to express that. We're very sensitive to other people. We can read other people very well, and spot when maybe they're not in a great place. We don't tend to follow the pack. And as I said, we're passionate about the things that we love and the people that we love too. We're very loyal friends, and we find it very hard when those friends fall apart. Now, when you look at that list, does that look like someone who's in deficit or falling apart and hasn't got any skills? No, it doesn't actually. If you were looking at a job spec for entrepreneur, innovative business leader, sports leader, someone who is focused, you look at how many people in the Olympics have got ADHD, and it's because they're passionate about what they do. It fulfills their need to move, and they can stay focused and train and improve. We've got a level of competitiveness about us of needing to be at the front to lead, and so those sort of things can be amazing. And unfortunately, for many years, all of these things have been seen as failings, and now, thank goodness, we're now in a place of being able to switch that round and see some of these things as actually massive positives. So what do we need to understand? I think this stuff is really important. Our culture that we live in, and this is globally. So as an organization, we work globally. We don't just work here in the UK. And I think this resonance of how we are brought up to live within our culture, and therefore here, certainly in the UK, our culture is about sitting still and listening and doing as we're told. And so we then see ADHD, our culture sees ADHD as failing, when it needs to be quite the reverse. All right. And absolutely things need to change. I think we're starting to chip away at the change. Certainly we as an organisation are, and there are other organisations that are doing the same, and really getting that message out about what this is. There's incredible books around living within culture and the damage that it does, where we're forced into a silo of something that squashes our skills and our abilities and makes us think that those are wrong, and that has really got to change. You also need to remember that those of us who are now adults, our society knew a lot less about ADHD when we happened to be children. And so the way we were seen when we were children has potentially done us quite a lot of damage. And that's a system fault. And also, it's just how it was. The research wasn't there to understand ADHD in the way that it is now. And so sadly, we were in that generation where people genuinely didn't understand, not because they were being awkward or blind to what it was that was going on. The information wasn't there. There was still those horrible messages about, it's bad parenting, we were just naughty, all of those things were very much in the middle of that. And but that was genuinely a lot of that from lack of research and lack of knowledge. It wasn't just about a cultural issue. So some of the things that we as adults are dealing with have come from that lack of knowledge, and we need to accept that and try to move forward from that in a positive way. So where we are now is we need to look at lifestyles and choices so that we can create the environment that allows us to thrive, that comes from a real understanding of what heightens and softens our personalities, our ADHD personalities, so that we can achieve the things that we want to achieve and move forward. So there's a good old phrase: if we keep doing what we're doing, we'll keep getting what we're getting. And that isn't just for us from a society missing out on what we get, but it's also us. We do also have a level of responsibility about how we want to move forward. And I know that might sound a bit meh, and people are going, yeah, well, I want to move forward, but I don't know how, and it's really hard, and I've tried all this stuff and it doesn't work, and everybody just thinks I'm this, but we're now opening the doors on that and saying there is a different way to look at this. And we want to get this information out there for everybody to be able to benefit from here. So emotional overwhelm, we need to understand this. Everybody in the world gets overwhelmed emotionally, and the reason that's got block 1 on it is because we feel we've got 7 blocks that explain ADHD, which we're going to go through and look at solutions and different ways to move forward. So we talk about this as being phase 1, 2 and 3. Phase 1 is when we're calm, and most people with ADHD are never really calm in the way that other people perceive calm. We think we're calm, you know, but other people really wouldn't necessarily. That's on a level their problem. But here, this is to explain how our brains work. So when we're much more in this calm space, this space under this line is representing how our emotions are and where we are from a sensory perspective, and this bit here is how our brain's working. So we know that when humans are more balanced and calm, we have more headspace, right? So it's easier for us to do things because our brain's got more space to problem solve, plan, look ahead, make better decisions around what we're going to eat and what we're going to do, and just over general day-to-day things around routes for work and all of that sort of stuff. So calm is where everybody's trying to get. And we can be calmer than maybe we think we can. It's what we talk about when we talk about relaxing, which we're going to come to. This face here, you'll now see our line has moved and we have now become very something. So we may be very excited in a very positive way, but we may also be very sad, very depressed, very angry, have a very heightened sensory system. Our adrenaline levels might be really, really high, and our brain is then busy dealing with that very state. And so all the lovely things that are much easier to do here, they're now almost virtually impossible to do here. So we're not good at making good decisions when we're angry, which is shown by the things that we might say, the things that we might do, where, you know, some people might throw things or hit people or hit walls. I had a son that used to hit walls. Not so much now, well, not at all now, actually. But those things are difficult because our body's taken over at that point. And it's only when we calm down that we think, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have, I've really upset my mum, or I've upset my partner, or I've upset my child, I've yelled at my boss, or, you know, all of those things are not great when we're here. And so we're trying to work out how we got here and to try and calm that down, bring that line down so we don't go there as often. And equally, for people around us to realize that when we're here, the worst thing you can do is keep talking to us. All right, we use the analogy of this is like a fire, phase number 2. We don't want people to put more logs on it. You need to let us come down so that we've got space to hear what it is that you need to say, or that we need to say back, because we will be calmer ourselves at that point. And here is where we're masking all of that enormously, all right? And we're not able to function as well because we're so busy trying to hold that together, which is where many of us as adults would have been in school, desperately trying to conform, sit still, do as we're told, not get into trouble, remember stuff. Oh, I can remember lessons. I think I need to remember that. I need to remember that. Making notes in class would have been extremely difficult because we're having to listen to what the person is saying to us, work out, or we've got to write down while listening to the next bit at the same time. And our brains really don't do that very well, all right, because our brains have also got all these other things that are coming in from the other side, over which we don't have a huge amount of control over. And so we would have been masking heavily at school. And so when we came out, we'd have wanted to explode that, all right, and let that all out. Hence why We may have been needing some quite intense physical activity when we came out of school. We certainly would have needed food. What you need to remember is, as adults, we're probably still in very much similar space. So if you're finding at the moment that within your work you're masking, you need to make sure you're eating, you need to make sure you're getting that exercise, you need to make sure that when you come home, you've got a period of letting some of that come back out, so you're rebalancing yourself here. Being down here all the time is not good. It can lead to quite serious health issues, both physically and emotionally. So understanding what we're masking, and also learning that we don't have to mask as much as we think we do. It's about learning to live with who we are and create that lifestyle so we haven't got as much stuff down here. So block 2 is how our imagination works. Now, within ADHD, our imaginations are working like a train, quite frankly, but that doesn't mean they're working as other people completely expect them to. We struggle sometimes to self-reflect because our brain works too fast. We struggle around analysing time and being able to work out how many things we can get done in half an hour. So we will overcommit all the time. We could struggle in relationships because of that, about how other people see us and judge us. And we are very, very prone to always go into a negative with that. That person must hate me. I've just made myself look an idiot. All of those things will come in big time. We can certainly find it very difficult to risk assess situations, activities, because we just, oh yeah, that's amazing, I'll do that now. And so being able to, you know, how many times will we have had said to us, just slow down and think about it. Well, no, that's amazing, I want to do that. That's just, look, stop. All right. And as we get older, we have to learn how to create the stop a bit more with different structures, which is what we're going to talk about today. I think we can be really good at planning, actually, but it's how we do it. And as it says about with all of these things, it's not that we can't do them at all. We will do them in our own unique way, but we also need to stop trying to hold things in our head, in our imagination, and get them down on pieces of paper, post-it notes, whiteboards, whatever it is, to help us move stuff forward. It's when we try and do everything in our head that everything goes wrong. So let's look at self-reflection as a really good starting point. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick sip of water here. So self-reflection is a tool that is used constantly around how to problem solve. So that didn't go very well. So how can I do it differently tomorrow? And it was a thing my mum used to say to me constantly, go away and think about what you've just done and come back when you've got a better way you could do that tomorrow. All right. Now, the problem is, especially from ADHD, we tend to think about the last 5 minutes of a thing and to go all the way back to work out where it goes wrong. We can find that quite difficult when we try and do it in our head. We're very good at the problem solving bit, not necessarily good at working out exactly what the problem is, getting to the middle of it, especially by doing it in our heads. So we talk about doing backward storylines to find out where something goes wrong, because it's at that point that the solution needs to come in. Now, we have so many people that use these since we brought these in, because they just work. And it's about starting at the end. Now, we're using here an example of constantly losing car keys, something I was very prone to, I have to say. All right. And so to solve the problem, you need to find out where the problem comes from. And I know this is a very simple example. You can do this with anything, right? Even big problems. And we use these a lot in school with the kids that we work with and show teachers how to use them, and certainly in our work with families. So same principle for us as adults, and I do this a lot. I've got a big whiteboard behind me. It's a godsend. All right. So I'm really angry because I keep losing the keys every morning. So I'm going to sit and do my storyline. So I'm now late because I couldn't find my keys. What happened before that? Well, before that, I was in bed, and I got up, had breakfast, can't find my keys. They're not where I thought I left them. How many times have I said that in my life? And so that's then made me late, and then I'm angry. All right. What did I do before that? Well, in the evening, I sat watching TV, thought I was pretty chilled. I had my dinner, and I came home and I put my keys. I thought I put them there, but they're not there now. So I obviously didn't put them there. So I drove home, parked the car, came in the front door. I must have had my keys then, or else I wouldn't have got through the door. I thought I put them there, but they're not there. So actually this here is where it goes wrong, because I had my keys there. I thought I had my keys there because of that, but I didn't, because they weren't where I thought they were. And then everything goes wrong. So I need a solution, a system here, right? And it's a system that we're talking about. So the system is something that needs to happen as soon as I walk through the door. It's no good saying, oh, well, I'll put it in the key box in the other room. By the time we've got to the other room, we'll either forget to put our keys in the box, or we'll have put them somewhere else, or we'll have left them. So the solution needs to happen here, not here, right? So there needs to be something literally the other side of the door where we put our keys whilst they're still in our hand from undoing the door. Because if not, they'll end up in your bag or in your pocket, and then you'll forget which pocket, or you'll get halfway through and think, I'll put the keys in the kitchen, but you'll throw them somewhere, or again they'll have got lost in a pocket or a bag. It has to happen here, otherwise it won't happen, and you'll be in the same situation tomorrow morning when you get up. I thought I put them in the kitchen, but they're not in the kitchen. Happens here. The solution is here, and it's creating a system. Now you'll see there's a phrase that I use quite a lot. Don't put it down, put it away. If I told you how many times over the course of a day that goes into my head, it would mow your head, all right? But I'm constantly, don't put it down, put it away. Don't put it in the filing tray, scan it and put it in a task, all right? And that's something that I've had to talk to myself a lot over the years. I now do it. It's in my head as a constant repeat, but I do it consciously, all right? So don't put it down, put it away in the bowl near the front door, on the hook by the front door. But it's doing this that helps work that out. It's also doing this when we've got problems with our relationships, problems with planning that isn't working, problems with something that happened at work. Unravel it and work out where the beginning of the problem is. Otherwise, you'll just keep going over and over and over. So foundation block 3 is all about communication. We really need to think about how we need people to communicate to us, and then feel confident about sharing that information with other people and sharing it in a way that is clear to them, right? Because we can speak really fast or get information. Oh, I need to let you know, blah, 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 blah. And we may have said what we thought was really clear, but the other people are thinking, what? So again, it's about, we need to take some responsibility here too, all right? So point 1, we are not failing here, all right? This is a message to all of you. We're not failing. We just need you to communicate things more clearly, and for us to write things down, and for us then communicate really clearly to you about what it is that we want you to do, all right? So some simple things. Please don't do lists and give us to, not just here's a to-do list, or why don't you write a to-do list? I was so good at writing to-do lists. I'd have hundreds of them, quite frankly. And when I first met my husband, when he was just my boyfriend, he used to think it was really funny because I'd have a list of what I needed to do to go out or whatever. Anyway, and he said, I bet you make lists, don't you? He was joking. I bet you make a list, don't you, of the things you want to wear in the morning to go to work. And I went, no, because I wouldn't do that. Oh, but I did. All right. I had this little list of things that I was going to wear. All right. I now know that those lists actually overwhelm me. And in the end, I don't actually do any of it. So rather than just have loads of lists, I have systems, and systems work much better for me. Now, reminder boards are great. All right. So reminding people what they need to do in the morning is good, but not a massive list. When you think about visual timetables that we use for children with and adults with autism, visual timetables here can be equally great. So a reminder board can be good. Now, let's just think about when you say, can you just go upstairs and get? Can you just go upstairs and get your bag? Or equally, you might want to go upstairs and get your bag. All right. And we'll forget halfway up the stairs what it was that you said to us. I wouldn't say it was forgetting either. All right. Because you go, how could you forgot that? Our brain brings so much information in when we're walking up those stairs that it's pushed your message all the way to the back. Is that forgetting on purpose? No, it's not. Our brains took over. So we need a reminder of what we're going upstairs to get. And I know this might sound a bit pedantic, but boy, are these post-it notes then really, really helpful. Or equally, Alexa can be a godsend. So if you've got an Alexa upstairs, all right, then get someone to go remind Annie to pick the bag up when she goes upstairs. All right, so or remind Annie to pick the bag up in 5 minutes, because in 5 minutes I will have gone upstairs. All right, and Alexa will then go, Annie, don't forget the bag. Oh, thank you, I'd forgot, that had gone to the back of my head. And I remember Alexa. I've got one mum who's got an Alexa in every single room of the house, and she leaves reminders for her children, all 3 of them, ADHD, constantly. And Alexa is able to manage that really effectively. And I think we've got to start embracing the tech. All right, so in this situation, don't just talk, also make things visual. All right, but the tech as well can be really helpful. If you haven't got Alexa, you can use Siri on your phone. You can use voice notes with time frames on them to remind you to do things. So I'm a great one for post-it notes because I find them really easy. So like if my husband says, can you pick so-and-so up on the way home when you go out? I will write that on a post-it note and it will get stuck on the steering wheel of my car, because I will genuinely, it will suddenly ping into my head as I'm driving past the house to pull round the back to the garage. Oh my God, I was supposed to get. All right. And so, but that's my responsibility then, or Pete's responsibility, to write it on a post-it note and give it to me, whoever it is that's doing it. But we've got post-it notes all over the house because I find them really, really helpful. And it means that I'm more likely to do what people have expected. My kids learned very early on, and this is before I knew that I'd got ADHD. If they wanted something done, they need to write it on the whiteboard that was on the fridge. Otherwise, it wasn't going to happen. There's no good saying to me, Mum, can you remember to get my gym kit ready for tomorrow? Forget it. It's not. I would have forgot it, quite literally, right? It needs to go on the board. Otherwise, it ain't going to happen. All right. So think through how people can help you. All right, because it's actually really, really important. Language wise, we need clear instructions and expectations about what it is that we've got to do. All right, so this is seen as very much an autism thing, but actually it's very, very relevant for us with ADHD as well. If you give me a jumbled instruction, I'm only going to pick up bits of that, and then it's not helping it stay in my head. All right, which is why my husband writes me things on post-it notes. All right, but take the plate to the kitchen doesn't necessarily mean we know what to do with it when we get there, or we'll have forgotten what you said and we'll just leave it anywhere, and then you'll get onto us for that, rightly so, up to a point. All right, but it's about creating a system that when you don't put it down, put it away. All right, so don't put the plate down, put it in the dishwasher. And it's about embedding that phrase everywhere. Don't just put it down, put it away. All right. Sit down, but don't tell us where. Not helpful, because we'll just sit. And why did you sit there? Well, you never said not to. And these phrases can be really tricky as well. Good behavior today. What the hell does that mean? Just be kind to each other. Oh, can you just get that task thing done by the end of the week, please? What? So when we're talking to businesses about this stuff, we're getting them to heighten the way they communicate, right? Which everybody that we've worked with in that space, or I've worked with over the years with that, is it's heightened their communication across the board of their organization. And it's helped everybody in the room. And it will do the same for you at home. All right, by improving the communication for one person, making it a family event, a family thing to do, means that we're all improving how we communicate with each other. And it's the same when we're working in businesses and organizations. You know, when you write, one of the things that I'll do is list all the things like, would you like to improve? Staff being late, staff not finishing tasks, staff forgetting things, staff communicating really stupidly, lots of emails, etc., etc. And they'll go, yes, we'd like to do that for all of our staff. I said, right, well, I'm not going to show it how you do that for people with ADHD. And it will then, if you embed that in across your organization as a whole, it will help everybody, because this is how this works. So living ADHD as a family is where we're going to go. And communication is a key part of that. All right. I have to say, the whole thing about sending us upstairs to get things, you're on a losing battle with that anyway, because we will have, unless you've got this stuff there, just keep things downstairs that don't need to be upstairs. Right. Also use our name first. All right. When you're trying to get our attention. So people often accuse me that I need to go and get my hearing tested or whatever. And actually, I know now that that wasn't what was going on. It was because if I was reading or watching something, if someone speaks, I'm not able to process that because I'm concentrating here, especially if I'm in a hyper focus state. And it's not until someone says my name at the end that it will draw my attention. Right. And so you need to put my name first, make sure I'm looking at you, and then give me the information. Otherwise, if you do it the other way around, I genuinely am not listening to you. You're not listening to me. No, because I didn't know you were talking to me. You only said my name at the end, and then I was listening, but then you never said anything else. Right. So the name first is important. Now, our health is something that we are becoming more and more aware of. So ADHD and health, especially if you're on meds, can seem a really hard battle to fill. And if you remember when we talked about phase number 3, we said when we have to mask a lot, it can end up making us physically and emotionally unwell. And so really keying in to our own self-care becomes really, really important. And the thing is, the thing that's got us in the muddle that we're in as adults now is we were given neurotypical ways to look after our health. And we needed ADHD ways to look after our health. Right? And we're now really starting to understand that. And it's something that we as an organization are really, really passionate about really now pushing this agenda forward, because it really genuinely makes a massive difference. All right. Now, we need to move. Okay. Even if you've got inattentive ADHD, our bodies still need to move. Now, I'm not, as I said here, about being the next Olympic athlete here, but I mean, sitting all day and trying to sit still all day as a double whammy. All right, it's been identified now that sitting all day is becoming this generation's version of smoking because of the damage that it does to us. So we need to move. It's not about going for a run every day or a swim every day or what. It's just a move. All right. So I make sure that in between each of my sessions like these, I get up and move, or I'll do some moving about in my chair, or just walk downstairs to get a drink and come back up again. Our bodies need to move, okay? And we also need to look at when we need to move. So I swim most mornings. It's just my thing. I've been doing it since I was a child. And it was something that I used to do quite regularly during that, because I did used to swim competitively at that point. So it's a bit of my thing, right? But other people will have different things that they need to do. And putting movement into our day is important. It helps us manage some of that sense of masking. All right. And it is about, this is how an ADHD lifestyle needs to look. Us taking some responsibility for what it is that we need to do. Okay. So what is your thing? All right. So dancing in the kitchen, as I put on here, bit my thing. All right. Going for a jump on a little mini trampoline before bedtime. That's actually quite a big thing. Don't, you know, the whole relax process at bedtime for us doesn't necessarily work. We need to move before we try and sleep, because we need to get rid of some of that adrenaline in our systems. All right. And we're much better at doing individual things than necessarily big team things. But if you feel comfortable in a team, then go for that, right? But we need to move. We also need to be in green space a lot, because it's very good for us. So even just going for a walk in the woods, or going for a walk in the countryside, or whatever, all of those things help. Now, I've talked about mindfulness here, right? Rather than meditation, those of us that are hyperactive in our nature, meditation really doesn't work very well for us. And I'll talk a bit more in the next bit about that. But mindfulness, now that's something quite different, because you can do mindfulness in like a minute. All right. So if you can start to feel your system starting to be full of adrenaline, and you need to just settle it, doing mindfulness practices at this point can be really, really useful. So I call it intentional breathing, okay, but other people will call it mindfulness. But I will sit and just count slowly to about 20, count my breaths to 20, and get my breathing slower and slower and slower as I'm counting. All right, that really helps me. It helps me become aware of my environment. Sometimes I shut my eyes, not all the time, right? That's not meditating. That's just being mindful and listening to what's going on in the space. If you're outside, you might like to just sit for 5 minutes, you know, a couple of minutes, and do that, and just listen to the nature around you. Or some people really love their music and being able to listen to that. And if you like, not everybody at this point is going to want what is seen here, like relaxing, all right, as calm, peaceful music, all right? There are times when that grates on me so much I can't begin to tell you, all right? So I like my music to be quite fast and buzzing, and it really motivates me, especially in the mornings if I'm getting up and I'm feeling a bit, all right? If I put on some good music and get moving, dancing kitchen stuff, all right, it can change my mood just like that. All right, and we've got to get keyed in as to what our green things are that helps that. I'll talk more about red and green in a second. All right, also for us, relaxing isn't what other people think it is. All right, again, we were told to relax neurotypically, and that wasn't helping. It was actually making things worse. We generally cannot sit still. All right, someone telling me to go and relax in a bath is purgatory. Okay, there is nothing worse than me laying there. Within 30 seconds I'm laying there thinking, what am I supposed to do now? All right, this is ridiculous. I need to move. All right, equally I might need my brain to move, okay, hence why the meditation doesn't work so well. All right, we need to do something different to relax rather than not do anything to relax. So for example, I'll have been doing this all day. All right. So my version of relaxing in the evening is to go and do something different, not just sit and be brain dead in front of the TV. All right. So because it just irritates me. So I'm not actually relaxing. Right. But right, I'm a big jigsaw puzzle person, which might make you know, but it's a problem to solve, so I can get into that. People might like to do crafts or build things or go out in the garden or whatever. We're more likely to, that's relaxing for us because we're thinking about something different, not trying to not think at all and sit still. All right, so think about what you can use for that, because it is actually really important. And I'm sorry to say, but looking at what you're eating here does make a massive difference. Okay, we're understanding far, far more about our gut health and the impact that when our guts are not healthy, it has on our brain. It's like it's being called our second brain. In fact, in some things that you read, it will be called our first brain, that we're understanding now just how important our stomachs actually are. So go and do some homework about gut health and look at that. And please take it seriously because it's important. So your diet and gut health, getting rid of as much processed food as you can. Blood sugar imbalances are important to look at and keep an eye on where you are there. Looking at vitamins, so vitamin D, magnesium, B vitamins are a really good place to start, and you can get them all in one thing. Yogurt, oh my God, can't tell you how important that is. And I know it's not everybody's thing, but it's that sort of stuff. You've got to look at the things that we're putting in our body will have an impact on how we are. We already knew that, you know, when kids ate sugar, it made them hyper. Funnily enough, when we're adults, it's doing the same thing. I cut out caffeine, which was a big love of mine, I have to say. It wasn't an easy thing for me to do, but I cut caffeine out probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. The difference it made me after I'd got through that initial horrible headache withdrawal stage, which took about a month, I suppose. The difference it made for me was huge. And if I get accidentally given caffeinated coffee now, oh my God, does my body know about it, right? So I know that when we look at medication, that some people think that caffeine can be really good, and it can, but what I would say, it's worth a shot to just withdraw it if you can and go on to something without the caffeine, because it can make a big difference. Look at the toxins as well. Some of these things we're now understanding more about, lead, mercury, aluminium and copper, are neurotoxic, and we have a neuro disorder, so why would they not be impacting on that? That's just looking at it logically before you even get into research. So being aware of these things, the things that we're breathing, the environments we're working in, and becoming conscious of that really, really helps. Now, sleep and breathing quality is also something that, again, is coming in as a new thing. And we know that our systems especially need good quality oxygen. If we're breathing in a shallow way, it's not how. So learning how to breathe properly, which might sound a bit weird, but actually it's quite important. And I'm sure you may have seen some of the stuff in the press about when children sleep with their mouths open, you know, that they're not getting enough oxygen, and that then makes them more hyper the next day. And it's doing exactly the same thing for us. So looking at that's important. So what helps? We've touched on quite a lot of things, but I'm now going to add to that. So systems, like I say, don't put it down, put it away. All right. Transform my life. I can't begin to tell you. Right. Also look at where you put things away. So I watched a really cool video the other day where they were using don't put it down, put it away. But they were also talking about fridges. All right. And how we need to use the drawers in the fridge differently. So all of the condiment stuff that we tend to put in the fridge drawer, door in the little shelves, put them in the drawer, the crisper drawer, and put the salad stuff in the door so you can see it. And you will end up with a lot less waste because you can see what you've got. Once they've gone in the drawer, it becomes a bit hidden. And the times I've had to throw away fruit and tomatoes and stuff because they've gone bad because I forgot they were there, right? Whereas if they're in the door, they're staring me in the face, all right? You might want to consider a kitchen with no doors on. You know, there's lovely open shelf kitchens. so that things, you can see things. Again, it's about making it visible. All right. The reason the cup of tea is there is another one of my systems. All right. So it's not unusual for us to say, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. And you put the teacup, and you might put your mug and your tea bag in it. And then you'll be thinking, right, I need to do the kettle, and you put the kettle, and while the kettle's boiling, you get distracted. And all of a sudden you've got caught up in 10 million other things. And you'll come back to that mug 3 hours later, oh, I didn't make my tea. So I've created a system where I put the water in the kettle first, only enough for the cup of tea that I'm going to make, and I turn that on. Then I get the mug and the tea bag, which is sitting right above where the kettle is. All right. And by the time I've got the cup down and the tea bag in, and I've got the milk out of the fridge, the kettle's boiled. I'm more likely to make my tea if I do it that way round. And all that is a change, just the same as the fridge. It's a change, but it makes a massive difference. I have a system for washing my hair in the shower, which everyone always finds really funny, right? But if not, I'll wash my hair once, and while I'm washing my hair, my head's gone all over the place thinking about all sorts of things, and have I washed my hair once or twice? I can't remember. And I'll either be washing it 3 times or 4 times or whatever. So I have a system about where this bottle stands, all right? And it works for me because I then there. Things like, did I turn my hair straighteners off? And so when I'm using my hair straighteners, it's the don't put it down, put it away thing again. When I turn my hair straighteners off, I unplug it and put it away. And then I know when I'm halfway on the way to work that I definitely turned my hair straighteners off because I would have followed the system. And we had a young man yesterday that we were talking about shutting the bedroom window, which he's got a real fear that he's going to leave it open and someone's going to come in and steal his stuff, because it's happened before. And so he said, but I will go back 6 times to check it. And check that I've left my phone where I need it to be and what have you. So he's now trialing, I'll shut the window and I'll take a picture of it. So it's on my camera that I've shut it. And then if I need a reminder when I'm in the car or I'm halfway down the road, I'll go, oh yeah, I took a picture of it this morning, so I know it's shut. Now you might think that's a bit OTT, but all I can say to you is it works. All right, we're creating systems, not strategies, in quite the same way. All right. Look at what your triggers are to get distracted, like the kettle, all right? Where if you do it the wrong way round, there's a space there for you to get lost. Look up breaks. So when I'm doing my emails, I know that I can do 10 emails and then I need to look up, refresh, and then refocus and then come back on. If I do more than that, I will get overwhelmed and then I can't do any and my head goes. Replicate items. So I've got a phone, we've got in our house, we have phone chargers in every room in the house. I have a hairbrush in every single one of my bags. I have a water bottle in every single one of my bags. So I'm not looking for it, it's just there. Laddering tasks can be really helpful. If you've got to achieve a big thing, breaking it down into individual tasks and setting different times for that can be really, really good about being able to move those things forward. Red and green things. So red things are things that cause us stress, and green things are the things that help us relax. All right. And it's useful to do a bit of time to work out what they are. If you've got a red thing that you've got to do, always follow that with a green thing. So if you've got a tight deadline to do, then do your tight deadline, all right? But always do a green thing the day after or the evening after. And just allow your body, remember the health thing, to just reframe itself a bit, to give you space to go on to do the next thing. So look at what your relaxing things are. Always follow a red thing with a relaxing thing. Okay. Now, medication. I'm not a clinical person. Whenever we talk about medication, I'll always say it is a personal choice. All right. and nobody should judge you on whether you do or don't take it. Nobody. We had a school the other day, or said at the end of term, if you don't put your child on medication over the summer, he'll be permanently excluded by half term. They're not allowed to say things like that any more than your boss is allowed to say things like that. All right. You might want to self-reflect on what you're trying to thrive at. And is medication going to help me with that? Is it something I should at least consider? But nobody else should tell you that you've got to take it. All right. We all know that there are good and bads about it, but that's the same with anything. So it's about weighing up that for yourself. Our emotions, connecting to our self-esteem and our relationships. And it's important that other people understand this about us as well. So negative statements can really harm us. There was some research done that children by the age of 10 have had approximately 20,000 negative things said to them. All right. And before you even begin about how damaging that would be for anybody, for us with ADHD, the new research that's come out quite recently, we hold on to that stuff. That's why I think we as a generation of adults are really suffering with our self-esteem and how we move problems forward, because when we were children, we would have had loads of that. I'd like to think that children nowadays don't get as many as 20,000, because if not, we're really not moving forward with it at all. All right. We struggle with the responsibility of other people's emotions. We tend to absorb them. So if somebody else is angry in the room, we will suddenly become angry. Or if somebody's upset, it doesn't take much for us to get upset. I think it's why I'm dreadful at films. If there's anything on a film that is varying slightly to what I'm a physical mess. All right. And so we absorb other people's emotions and emotions around us really quickly. And we need to be aware of that. If we can see a situation getting out of control, when I don't need to be here actually, because if not, I'm going to be in the middle of that. That's a good trigger that we need to remove ourselves from that situation. And again, that's just our bodies that are doing that, but it's about us taking responsibility to know how to move that forward. We talk about social donuts. All right. So it's my daughter that used to talk about this, that relationships are like donuts. There's this sticky mess, the jam in the middle, and we think we have to be in there all the time, but it can go wrong a lot. And it's about saying, right, I'm going to be in the sticky mess for a little bit, but then I'm going to give myself the bit around the outside. Can you see which of that is the red and the green thing? So I'm going to go in the red thing for a little bit, because I like being with people and I like the social process of that. If I'm in there too long, it'll go wrong. So I need to remember to come out and do a green bit around the outside. We also tend to know lots of people, and people say, you've got so many friends. And I'd have to say, I wouldn't say they were all what I would class as friends. I find I need a small group of strong, supportive friends, which I've got and I'm very grateful for. My staff team are all neurodiverse within my team. I like to think that they were part of my small, strong group of supportive people in every sense of the word. I'm sure they'd tell me if I wasn't. But there's lots of people that might think we're cool, and that can get misinterpreted enormously. We're desperately trying to fit in. We're desperately trying to be neurotypical, and we don't have to be, actually, right? We can just be who we are. And the people that really care about us will accept us for who we are. Don't present yourself as somebody that you're not, because you will attract the wrong people to you, and you will constantly keep feeling that you're failing and that you're weird and there's something wrong with you, when actually when you find your small group of strong supportive friends who are your people, the difference it can make you is amazing. Sensory processing is, again, always seen as a bit of an autism thing, but it can have the same impact on us. And I just want to explain why. So sensory processing is a massive area. You need to go away and do some research yourself about it. But equally, when we're very adrenaline fueled, the sensory stuff becomes more and more difficult for us to manage. We're going up towards phase number 2 when our adrenaline levels are high. And it's understanding what brings some of those adrenaline levels in, I think, to really help with that. We have to work out whether we're seeking that sensory realignment or we're avoiding it. so that we can understand that and learn what to do. As I said, this is a big area. I'm more than happy to talk to you individually about where that sits for you. You just need to contact us, which will be at the end. But don't disregard it and think it's just an autism thing, because it isn't. All right, we are dealing with this stuff too. Within our community, depression and anxiety are high. And as I say on here, to be honest, it's not really surprising, because the lack of knowledge and negative judgment that we were brought up within. Again, some of that was nobody's fault. It was just the way society was at the time. But we can become more settled by doing a lot of the things that we've already been talking about today. Take mood swings seriously. Don't just ignore them. All right. And really look at those red and green things. And green things include eating healthily, moving, making sure we've got the right nutrients in our system, creating systems. All of those things are green things. And they gradually help move things forward. A lot of the adults that we support, we're helping them review their past, things that have happened, relationships that may have gone wrong, situations where they may have got caught up within criminal justice systems and all of those things. And it's helping to reframe those. And when we can reframe them and realize that we weren't bad people, bad things were happening to us and the system was wrong, it can help us move forward and help with some of the depression and with the anxiety. So everything we do is trying to communicate something to us and to those around us. And the more attuned we get into that, and the more we help other people around us understand that, the better off we're going to be. It looks like all of these things, none of these things will surprise you. And the people that we live with, it won't surprise them after either. So we'll avoid things because they're too hard, shouting and getting out of control, maybe physical based behavior, both from a movement perspective, but also veering on the aggression, sometimes destroying work that we've done, not being able to do work. All right, all of these things are saying we need some help here. Addiction is very high in our community, and illness, physical illness and mental illness is as well. But a lot of that has come from this lack of knowledge in society when we were children. We now want to do better for our children that are coming through, so they don't end up in the same situation that maybe we did. Identifying where your anger is coming from is important, and it will always come from either fear, hurt, or frustration. I think you can now see the hurt part for us can be really strong. We'll get angry with somebody because they've hurt us emotionally, because we absorb that. We get frustrated because we constantly think we're getting things wrong when we're not. We just need different systems to enable us to work through. And we can get really frightened for our future, and frightened that we're going to lose our relationships because of how we are, when actually we just need to understand them more, and using people like us as an organisation to work through that can be really, really useful. It's always about finding out the middle. Remember the backward storyline we done right at the beginning? This is what this is. Finding out why it happens, where it went wrong, so that we can do something about the beginning instead of always trying to solve the end. How many times will you have been told you need some anger management? No, we need to know what causes the anger in the first place and deal with that. We need to understand what hurts and upsets us in the first place and deal with that. If we're just being told to sit still, concentrate more, and not be angry, it's never going to change. All right, we need to go backwards to work out where we are. So just to round up, we owe it to ourselves to live an ADHD life. All right, stop trying to be neurotypical, right? Because that's not who we are. And we need to learn how to work with that. We need to look at our diet and how we spend our day. All right, red and green systems. We owe it to ourselves to stop seeing that we are failing or deficit. All right. Don't do things to avoid criticism, do things for ourselves. The reason I put this in was something that we were doing last week, and The week before, I'd spoken to one of the adults that we're working with about sorting out their post when it comes in through the door. So we deal with it and put it away. We don't just, and we followed up the following week. I said, how's it going? I done it for a couple of days and then I gave up. Oh, right. Why was it not working? Well, I thought about why it wasn't working, and I was doing it because I was worried that you were going to tell me off if I didn't do it. Again, failed. And I said, but we need to think about why you've got to do it for you. And I said, why do you want to do the post? And she said, because I'm always missing things for my daughter and I don't want her to miss out because of me. I said, then we practice it for her because you want to do it for her. You're not doing it for me because I'm going to get told off. How entrenched is that from when she was in school? I'm doing it so I don't get told off, but it's not really what I need. Because they hadn't given the right reasoning and positive trigger to be able to move forward. We talk about rest, not sleep. All right, I'm going upstairs to rest now. If we go upstairs to sleep and then we can't, there's nothing worse than I can't sleep, I can't sleep, I can't sleep. I'm just going to rest or read a book, watch a bit of TV, maybe, and gradually settle myself to sleep. If we concentrate on the word sleep, it doesn't help. Practice intentional breathing, time activities to help with planning and time management. So where we can overcrowd a million things into half an hour, because we haven't been able to work out how long it takes to wash up, how long it takes to do the washing and hang it out. So get a bit anal about it and time those things and write it down. All right. Right. So it takes me 10 minutes to hang the washing out and 10 minutes to wash up. And so in my half an hour, I can do those 3 things, but I can't do anything else. All right. And families need to work as a team. Everybody needs to live this ADHD lifestyle, not just you. All right. Because all of this stuff is good stuff for everybody, actually. Clear communication, moving, doing things together as a family, looking at how we can work to each other's strengths rather than just focus on the things that, you know, are not going quite so well. So I know we've run over time a little bit, but there's a lot of information there. That's why we like to record it, because you can then get the recording and keep going back and pausing it and writing things down, pausing it and writing things down. I'm sure many of you will have some questions. So please email the info email, or equally you can email me, which is just annie.clements in the same end. You can get hold of us through our Facebook groups. You can go to our website and sign up to the newsletter. And equally use the contact page to reach us through there. We would love to hear what you thought of the training. I'm really hoping that you got some great stuff out of today. And it's a starting point. It's not all of it, but it's a place to start. And the key thing is to start to look at it differently, to embrace your diagnosis, your identity, and live with it instead of trying to put it into a neurotypical box. And we're here to help with that if you need that more than what we've delivered in the training today. Thanks very much for your time. Those of you that have put things in the Q&A, I'd be grateful if you could just email that Q&A over, because it means then that I can speak to you individually about that, which would be fabulous. So please just do that. That would be amazing. And I hope you all have an amazing day, and keep in touch. Thanks very much.